The fact is, at some point, I began to harbor resentment and hatred towards these people because I got angry too. I couldn't understand why they were acting that way towards you. Must learn to separate individuals from the role that they play in your life, whether positive or negative. If they play a positive role, do not idolize them. If they play a negative role, do not resent them. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Prishoga Deoluwabusola, and this is a channel that will help you grow and get better. So you should subscribe if you haven't. In today's episode of MLP, I'll be talking about seeing people beyond the lessons God uses them to teach you. I know it sounds like a very long title, but it's quite an interesting one and one that God has laid in my heart to share, and I'll be doing just that. Straight to the point. There are times in our lives where certain people come into our lives and teach us certain lessons that hurt us, certain lessons that, they do certain things to us that hurt us a lot, that we find it difficult to heal from, things that we never saw coming. And some of these people are very close to us, very dear to our heart. It feels like heartbreak, it feels like betrayal. But the truth is, these things were things that they had to do to us in order to help us grow. There are things that people will do to us in life. There are times that we would feel betrayed. People will do all sorts of things. It may not be betrayal. People would hurt our feelings and we'll be tempted to be bitter towards them or not see. We'll be tempted to be bitter towards them and hate them, and bitterness and hatred would blind us from seeing what God is actually using them to do in our lives. So I'm going to be sharing a particular experience and also a biblical experience, my experience and biblical experience, and I'm going to draw a lesson from it and see how it applies to us personally in our individual lives. So first things first, I'm starting with my personal experience. I was to lead a particular group of people and I was meeting them for the first time, and I noticed some kind of hostility towards me. We met for the second time and it was even worse. And I began to wonder why people who had never met me before, never heard about me, would be hostile towards me. It was just so bad. And before last year, I used to be this very emotional, fragile person. I still am, but not as much as last year. Trust me. And so it was so bad that it got me thinking. At some point, I started crying. I'm like, someone who doesn't know me before just hates me for no reason. At some point, I and some other persons had to ask them, okay, feel free, speak. It's okay. If you want to speak against me, but let's sort this out. And we got to realize that there was really no basis for what they were doing. It was just, and so I couldn't understand it. I was frustrated, but I had to work with them. So a few months later, it was resolved. And I was still confused because it didn't make sense to me. And so God was making me understand that he used that experience to train me to be able to handle my emotions properly. Now the lesson here is this: we must learn to separate people from the lesson that God uses them to teach us. The fact is, at some point I began to harbor resentment and hatred towards these people because I got angry too. I couldn't understand why they were acting that way towards me. And so God was making me understand that those things were blinding me from what he was using them to do in my life. And so the moment I realized that it wasn't really them, they were just vessels, so to say, I was better. Now, it's the same thing that happens in movies when someone is used to acting the part of an antagonist, always being evil in a particular movie, always playing a wicked role. When you see them physically, you want to see them in light of the role that they played, forgetting that it was just a role. You must learn to separate individuals from the role that they play in your life, whether positive or negative. If they play a positive role, do not idolize them. If they play a negative role, do not resent them. Now, to the biblical example, you remember the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Now, years down the line, he became prime minister of Egypt. They needed his help. He revealed himself to them. They were sorry for what they did. And they apologized. They were really sorry. And Joseph told them something that struck me. He said, don't get angry at yourself. It wasn't you. It was God using you. And any other person, including myself, before God taught me this, any other person would have resented them for it. Now, okay, you tried to sell me into slavery, now I'm your boss, now you need food from me, I'm going to give only my father, you all can starve to death for all I like, for all I care. But Joseph saw beyond what they did and decided to focus on what God is doing. The truth is, God would use people for you if you want to grow, if you want to achieve anything, you want to move from a phase of your life to another. God would use people. The earlier you learn to separate people from the role that they play in your life, the better for you. People would not play the same role. If you decide to forgive and show love to only those who play positive roles, you'll be setting yourself up for a disaster. Because take it or leave it, people would always be used. The same way the devil uses people is the same way God uses people. Sometimes God does not prompt these people to do bad things to you, but since they are prompted to do those things to you, he decides to use that situation for your good, to help you grow. You need to, one prayer that I think that we all need to pray is that God opens our eyes to see beyond what people do to us, so that we can learn the lesson we need to learn. People would keep hurting you and betraying you until you learn the lesson you need to learn. The earlier you learn to separate them from the lesson, the better for you. This is all that I have to say today. This is what I have to say in today's episode of MLP. Do well to share this video if it has blessed you. Share your experiences with me in the comment section. I really want to learn from you. Let's talk. And also read the story of Joseph if you can, from Genesis, I think 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, or 48 to 50. Read everything about Joseph. Read it. I read mine in NIV translation. That was where Joseph was saying, do not be angry at yourself. So read it in as many translations you can. Read it in NLT, Amplified. One of these days I'll talk about the Bible translations that I use. And how they blessed me. Yeah. So do well to share, like, subscribe, do all you need to do. I'll see you in the next episode of MLP. Bye.